Welcome into the Boys Night Fantasy Football League Network, or that's right, you guessed it, the BNFFLN. See, it's already catching on. To my left,
I'm Bob.
And I, of course, am Weave, and this is our Week 7 edition of Start 'em Sit 'em. All right, let's get right to it. What you got?
All right, we're going to go quarterbacks to start off. I'm going with Blake Bortles.
Bortles.
Sounds gross off the tongue.
It definitely does.
Not a regular starter, throughout the season, but not a regular starter as far as putting him in your lineup. Not the best quarterback, but the Colts are ranked 29th worst against the QB. So I know out of the 4 of the past 6 weeks, they have let up more than 300 passing yards, which sets up Bortles to have a really solid week. I think with Leonard Fournette behind there, they're gonna have to respect the run. I think that's gonna open up the passing game, and I think he's gonna have a good day.
Yeah, and if Leonard Fournette's doing that on the ground, then they definitely have to respect it. And even if they fall behind, Blake Bortles, the king of
garbage
time.
Yeah.
So he'll rack up those points. I like it. It's a bold pick.
A little bit more bold, yeah. There's a lot of good options out there. But
we're not going to say it a whole lot, but this week, I like that pick.
All right.
As for me, my start of the week is Jared Goff versus the Arizona Cardinals. So far this season, Goff has been serviceable when compared to last season. And as mentioned before, he's made huge strides to become the leader of one of the highest scoring offenses in the NFL this season. And while he has admittedly struggled in his past 2 matchups against Seattle and Jacksonville, I'd like him to rebound this week in London against the Cardinals defense, who just got torched by the backup QB, Ryan Fitzpatrick of Tampa Bay. And it wasn't just that game. Overall, Arizona has given up the 5th most fantasy points to opposing quarterbacks this season. So while it is a London game, and you and I both know strange things do tend to happen over there, I'm still rolling with Goff in what should be a high-scoring shootout. And for that reason, I say start him.
Yeah, I like Goff. I think he's a nice, pleasant surprise from last year. Last year didn't have it together. I know the whole team in general just didn't. Todd Gurley didn't have a good year.
There were a lot of people that were already writing him off. Both Gurley saying he was a one-season wonder, and Goff will never be that franchise quarterback. And again, it's still early into the second season, but what they're showing us right now, you can't help but be excited for what's to come.
Absolutely.
Who you got for your sit-ems?
All right, sit for the quarterback position. I'm going Phillip Rivers. Yeah, against the Denver defense. They did. Denver. They lost. They lost to the Giants. Giants get their first win of the season. Definitely, a lot of people did not see that coming, but I think they're going to rebound this week. I think they're going to be able to stop. They are the best against the pass on the year, so I think they get it done this week. I think they stop Phillip Rivers. Phillip Rivers, great. Could be a Hall of Famer. I know. People all say he doesn't have the ring, but I think he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks without one. And I know they're frantically trying to get him one. He's got some young weapons there, but I think Denver shuts him down this week.
Yeah, it's a divisional matchup. He does tend to struggle against Denver. And surprisingly, even though they are home, for whatever reason, he plays Denver better on the road. So that definitely plays into the matchup this week as well.
All right, cool. What you got for your sit-em?
My sit of the week is Jameis Winston versus the Buffalo Bills.
I like that sit.
All signs point to Winston playing. As we know, he was hurt. A little banged up last week and came out. Despite that sprained shoulder, it looks like he's going to play. But it's more the matchup than the injury that's kind of scaring me away from him this week.
Yeah.
The Bills have quietly become an extremely tough on opposing quarterbacks, allowing the 3rd fewest fantasy points to the position and only giving up 2 touchdown passes this season, which when I read that stat surprised me. Winston has been admittedly a disappointment. A lot of people thought as a 3rd-year quarterback he's going to take that next step, and so far this season he's been unable to do it. There's still plenty of season left, but yeah, it just hasn't come through, and starters and owners have needed him this season. And given that Buffalo has also had an extra week to prepare, coming off their Week 6 bye, combine that with his limited reps in practice, he's definitely not a great option in Week 7, and for that I say sit him.
Yeah, I like Jameis as a player, but yeah, I agree that, just that AC, I'm pretty sure it's an AC joint.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's I don't know, it's
in
tough.
His throwing shoulder.
Exactly. If it was his other shoulder, maybe he gets it done, but with that throwing shoulder, you don't know.
Yeah, it limits the upside,
yeah,
for sure.
Absolutely caps him there. So, all right.
Moving on to running backs. Bob, who do you got?
I'm going with C.J. Anderson as my running back start this week. Chargers, that game, I feel like we got a lot of matchups in that game, but Chargers they've given up 809 rushing yards on the season. They've definitely haven't been able to stop the run as well. People might be hesitant to start him this week,
especially after last week.
Absolutely, and people thinking, what if Jamal Charles has been putting up solid
committee approach?
Yeah, so you think that his workload's going to get dialed back. I don't believe that's going to happen. I think Jamal Charles, great running back, but I think with just his history and his, how they're using him in the offense, I don't think owners need to be worried about C.J. Anderson not getting the touches. The Chargers have also been giving up 23 points on average per week to the running back position, which is crazy. So I'm saying start C.J. Anderson. I'm saying he has a good game.
Yeah, hey, we're firing up in the
JVG league.
So
please have a good week, C.J. Anderson.
C.J., we need you this week, buddy. I don't want to say you were the sole contributor to our loss last week, but
definitely weren't helping.
Didn't help the cause. As for me, my start of the week is a combo. I'm going to go with James White and Dion Lewis, running backs, against the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay.
So as I'm sure everyone can remember, Super Bowl 51, no one had a bigger game and would have been the MVP if Tom Brady wasn't there. He had 6 carries for 30 yards, 2 touchdowns, and caught 14 passes as a running back, 110 yards on 16 targets, which is absolutely ridiculous. And while he probably won't get that much work this week unless the Patriots find themselves trailing, 28-3 again. But he is worth a starting, at least as a flex, if not RB2 in both standard and especially PPR leagues. And for the same reasons, I'm also going to start Lewis. He's on the Patriots roster. He's easily been their most explosive back this season, and he's continued each game to get more and more touches. Combine that with Atlanta struggling against pass-catching backs this season, and they've allowed 7 running backs so far to catch at least 3 passes in a game, and of those, 4 have gone for touchdowns. I like both of these running backs in this matchup. And with that insight, I say start him.
All right. For my sit-em at the running back position, I am going across the line of scrimmage. We're staying in that Denver game. I'm going sit Melvin Gordon this week.
That's a hot take.
It is a hot take. I know Melvin Gordon's been solid, relatively solid. He has been solid this year. So I don't know what I'm talking about.
He's a bona fide RB1.
Yeah.
He's justified his draft status.
Again, tough matchup.
This is why we're here.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is the insight we need. So what do you got for us?
All right, yeah. I know it's going to be a tough matchup against Denver. I know last year they were better against the pass, but this year, leading up so far, they've been better against the run. So I don't see Melvin Gordon having that big boom week that you really need him to have. Definitely, I think it's going to be, divisional matchup. I think it's going to be a lower scoring game. I say sit Melvin Gordon. I think they're going to stuff the run.
All right. Well, I don't know who has him in our league. I believe David does. So, David, you can ignore that if you want to start over.
Yeah.
Hey, you don't have to listen to us, but you should. Okay, we're looking out for the best interest of the league. As for me, my sit of the week, I'm going right back to the same game as well that I had just mentioned. I am sitting Mike Gillislee versus the Atlanta Falcons. You know the deal with Gillislee by now. He's proven to be a touchdown or bust fantasy option. And he hasn't scored a touchdown in his last 4 games, rendering him practically useless. So I don't even know why he's still on your roster. But if he is, bench him. He's averaged 4 points a game the past 4 games. And to make matters worse, he fumbled last week, which if you're on a Bill Belichick team and you fumble, you're in the doghouse. You're going to be shamed.
Yep.
And that's exactly what happened. The second he fumbled, he got taken out of the game. Dion Lewis took over, and I don't think they're going to look back after that. They might still use him in goal line or short yardage situations, but you can't bake on that every week.
No, absolutely not.
And he offers nothing in terms of pass-catching ability. So this is, in a PPR league, you really don't want him. So I'd rather start, like I had said, White or Lewis over Gillislee in any format. And we could also see the return of Rex Burkhead making for a crowded backfield, push Gillislee even further back on the depth chart. And with that, I say keep him on your bench, sit him.
Yeah, Mike Gillislee. I think coming into the draft, people were really excited about him in that Bill Belichick offense. I know, especially that first week, he vultured a bunch of touchdowns, but outside of that, it's been a downward spiral for Mike Gillislee. Tough one to swallow, definitely.
All right, moving on to the wide receiver position. Who do you got?
All right, I'm starting Dez. We're moving outside the Denver Charger game. We're going with the Cowboys. Going up against the 49ers.
Them Cowboys?
How about them Cowboys? Coming off the bye, I think they're going to be fresh. They're going to be hungry. I think the 49ers are ranked 22nd against the pass. 4 out of the last 6 weeks, they've given up more than 100 yards to receivers. So I think it's going to be more. They're going to have the opportunity to put up points. I think they're going to be in the red zone a lot. Dez, big target in the red zone. I think they're going to target him. I don't think Jason. We'll talk about Jason Witten later, but I don't think they'll be able. I think they'll be able to cover up Jason Witten, but Dez with that one-on-one. If he ever gets a one-on-one matchup out there, it's over. I feel like he's gonna find a tutty.
Tutties. Look out.
That's my start.
Especially, Dez, he gets criticized a lot. He has a higher drop percentage. He had those 2 years where he absolutely blew up, and then he's gone through some tough times. But with Dak Prescott playing the way he is, they're coming off the bye. Dez Bryant and him, they've really gelled at the end of last season specifically. That's carried over into this season. I could certainly see him having a big week.
Yep.
As for me, my start of the week at the wide receiver position is Alshon Jeffrey versus the Washington Redskins. Normally, I would be hesitant to start a wide receiver matching up against Josh Norman, but with him not expected to play with a fractured rib and a punctured lung, and Breeland, a linebacker for them as well, Jeffrey should have the chance for this one to make it one of his better games this season. He had 10-plus targets in the past 2 games, and then last week at Carolina had a touchdown, unfortunately called back. So all the signs are there. It just hasn't materialized yet, and I think this is the week that it does. Wentz is spreading the ball around, and he's trying to keep everybody active and involved. So with a favorable matchup this week, based up on the banged-up Washington secondary, look for Jeffrey to finally reward any frustrated fantasy owners out there with a huge week. So here I say, start him.
Yeah, I like Alshon Jeffrey. I know there was a report today that Norman has not even started running. So he's not practicing. He hasn't started the process of even just running.
See that they just reported it today, the NFL, but the BNFFLN.
Now it's official.
We already had that intel. So look here first, guys.
Absolutely.
We'll get an app out soon, but right now you'll just have to stick to the weekly video updates.
Absolutely. Eagles on a roll. Alshon's going to be big this week.
Yes.
All right. Going sit-ems?
Yep.
All right. My sit-em of the week at the wide receiver position is going to be Deshaun Jackson.
For
similar reasons to why you're
former Eagle.
Yeah, exactly.
And former Redskins.
Yeah. For similar reasons that you were talking about Jameis Winston, that AC joint, I don't think he's going to be able to get it done. Great Bills D. They, one of the best defenses in the league right now. I think in Deshaun Jackson, he's definitely one of those boom or bust type of receivers. I mean, he could easily put up large numbers. I think a lot of his receptions come on big down the field targets, and I think with Jameis having that with the AC joint, I don't think he's going to be able to heave it downfield. No. I say sit Deshaun Jackson.
Yeah, I'm on board with that call as well. And normally, again, to bank on someone that is more boom or bust style play, and then you take the quarterback out of the equation. And although Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was a starter for a while, he can sling the ball around the field. Yeah, I don't really like the matchup, and then combine that with his play style. I'd sit him as well.
Tough week.
As for me, that's right, you guys. For a second week in a row, he found himself in this position, and he has nobody to blame but himself. I didn't want to do this.
He's in the corner. He's got the dunce hat on.
I did. So I'm going to sit Sammy, that's right, still Sammy Watkins versus the Arizona Cardinals. And while this may feel like kicking a guy when he's down, as Watkins has found himself on this list last week, which he did not disappoint, or actually, for fantasy owners, he did. But fantasy football just does not care. So Watkins has seen a total of 6 targets over his last 4 games. That's incredibly horrible.
It's a horrible pace.
explosives.
Clap again and then just
Fuck,
start
let's start
over.
from the beginning.
Start over with your tight end. Or no, your wide receiver. Sorry, wide receiver center, Sammy Watkins. Clap.
As for me, that's right. This player found himself in this position on my list again. And you know what? It's nobody's fault but his own. And it's no other than Sammy. That's right, Sammy Watkins. And I'm sitting him against the Arizona Cardinals.
In your doghouse again.
Yes, he is. And he will stay there. I will put him in this spot every week until I see some life out of him. So while this may feel like you're kicking a guy when he's down, and you are, Watkins, he's been on this list, like I said last week, and he didn't disappoint, or actually he did for fantasy owners if you didn't take our advice, which...
I don't know why you wouldn't.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, this is gold on this show. We have all the intel. We have all the insight.
Put in the hours.
We do. So, I mean, he disappointed fantasy owners if you started him. But fantasy football, they don't care about the player. They don't care about the points.
Sometimes unfortunate.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
And I like him as a player, but he is just, he's not showing any signs of life. So, Watkins has seen a total of 6 targets over his last 4 games. That's an incredibly horrible stat line from what's supposed to be a wide receiver 1. He'll now draw a Cardinals defense, which, as I mentioned earlier, they're very generous against opposing wide receivers. So, why wouldn't you start him? They're allowing the 5th most fantasy points to the position. Well, in fact, they have one strength on that secondary, Patrick Peterson. And while he is a little banged up, he had a pulled quad last week, it sounds like he's going to play. And guess who he's expected to shadow?
I was going to ask you if he's shadowing.
Sammy Watkins.
Yeah.
He's the best in the business at shadowing on defense. Peterson can shut down all wide receivers, and especially Watkins. And Jared Goff, he seems to frantically avoid throwing the ball to any opposing team's number 1 cornerback. So I don't know if you drop him quite yet. If for whatever reason he's on the team, he definitely should not find his way in the starting lineup. And for that, I say sit him.
Yeah. I like Todd Gurley in the game, and I think that they might be able to be beaten on the run. But yeah, I think as far as like what you can what you said with the number 1 receiver and the corner going out there to shadow him, I don't like that matchup.
Not at all.
Moving on.
The tight end position.
All right, last one, finishing up. All right, well, I'm going for my stardom. I'm going Jimmy Graham. You wanna talk about a defense that has given up a ton of points to the tight end?
Let's talk about
it. All right, yeah, I'll tell you right now. It's the Giants' defense.
The Giants' defense, guys. Listen up. This could be valuable information later on down the season.
Absolutely. This is not the Giants' defense of last year. So I don't think they're going to be able to stop it. I think they haven't held a tight end under 15 points. So I'm saying Jimmy Graham has a huge week. You're going to see vintage Jimmy Graham putting up the tutties. It's going to be a good week for Jimmy Graham.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And you and I both know the NFL, it's a copycat league. So if other teams, when they're studying the game film, have seen what other offenses have done to this Giants defense, specifically at the tight end position, I could definitely see them exploiting it and Jimmy Graham blowing up for tons of points.
Absolutely.
And I particularly like that because I have been debating whether to start Gronk or Graham this week.
It's a good problem to have.
With that matchup, you got me leaning towards Graham right now.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, yeah, Gronk going up against the Falcons might be a little bit tougher. Who knows? But yeah, I think Jimmy Graham's locked and loaded. Good for this week.
As for me, my tight end start of the week is Austin Hooper. That's right. We're going back to this
yes,
versus the
New
England Patriots game. After seeing just 6 targets in his first 3 games, 2 of which he turned in for a monster game, week 1 against the Bears. As we all know, we stiff-armed that guy into next week.
Oh, yeah.
We'll have that on the highlight film for next season. Don't worry, we already got it cut up.
Yep.
He's seen over 16 targets his last 2 games, turning 12 of them into 100 yards. He's certainly established himself as a big piece of this high-scoring Atlanta offense moving forward. And once Mohamed Sanu went down with an injury, Hooper definitely stepped up and filled the role. He now gets a matchup against the dumpster fire that is otherwise known as the New England Patriots defense, which allows the 3rd most fantasy points to opposing tight ends. And just a fuck ton of yards in general.
Absolutely.
To be honest. So there's no reason to hesitate on this one. If he's on your team, if he's on the waiver wire and you're searching for someone, grab him, pick him up, throw him in the starting lineup, and be confident in week 7. So here I say, start him.
Yeah, I think everyone always kind of has this view of New England. Like, even if they're kind of off in the at the beginning of the year, they always say, hey, it's New England. They're gonna change it. They're gonna get it. They're gonna get it right on track. It hasn't happened on the defensive end.
It's been 6 weeks so far. So.
Absolutely. So I think that trend continues. They have some serious holes in that defense. I like that pick. So now I will go to my sit-em at the tight end position. My sit-em of the week at the tight end position is going to be Jason Witten. Kevin, I'm going to read off some numbers for you. Hold on. Let me pull them up real quick.
I'm ready.
All right, you ready?
What do we got?
All right. 18, 26, 21, 12, 30, 102.
I'm noticing a pattern here.
Yes.
All high numbers.
Yeah, right. That is the amount of yards that the 49ers have been giving up to the tight end position.
Oh, damn.
So they did, last week, 102, so not a bad week, but didn't get in the end zone, so it was only 15 points.
I was stuck in the fantasy football realm. I was thinking points per week.
No.
But that's an eye-opening stat right there.
Absolutely.
It.
Low yardage to the tight end position. They have been getting beat against opposing wide receivers, but they have been absolutely shutting down the tight end, and that's why I say, you don't start Jason Witten this week. You gotta
safety blanket. That's Jason Witten.
I know he's on our JVG team too, so I don't know.
But don't worry, on the JVG, we're gonna fire up Austin Hooper.
That's right.
You guys don't gotta worry about that. But yeah,
that's my sit-em. Yeah,
sitting for the week. It's always tough because he's just been a premier guy.
He's been around for a long time.
But with the matchup and those numbers, to be quite honest,
pretty good from the 49ers.
Yeah, definitely. As for me, my tight end sit of the week is Jordan Reed versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And you know what the Eagles do poorly, Rob?
What do they do?
They defend poorly against wide receivers. Why are you talking about wide receivers as the tight end position? Well, he doesn't play wide receiver. Reed is a tight end. He may have the elite athleticism to move like a wide receiver, but he is still, in fact, a tight end. How's that for analysis? The Eagles are fine against the tight ends. In fact, they're actually very good. But Philadelphia, because they're so bad against wide receivers, and and Philadelphia. Oh, I messed that up. We have to start over.
You start again with Jimmy Graham? Or no,
with Jordan.
Yeah, Jordan Reed. Yeah.
I typed it wrong.
I saw you look down.
I was like, I knew right away.
So just clap and then pause for a second and then go ahead and get into it.
As for me, my tight end sit of the week is Jordan Reed versus the Philadelphia Eagles. And you know what the Eagles do poorly, Bob?
Tell me.
Defending against wide receivers. And I don't know if you know this, but do you know what position Jordan Reed is?
I don't think he's, off the top of my head, I don't think he's a wide receiver.
No, he's not. In fact, he is a tight end. So while he may have elite athleticism and move like a wide receiver on the field, he is in fact still a tight end. And the Eagles are fine against opposing tight ends. In fact, they're actually quite good at defending tight ends. So this distinction is more about how bad Philadelphia's defense is against wide receivers. And so as I mentioned before, Reed just hasn't been that good this season in general. He's been banged up, which he always is, and he's always managed to put up points in the past, but this season it just hasn't been there. So you have to wonder, how healthy is he really? He doesn't seem to be clicking with Kirk Cousins right now. He doesn't have any more than 50 yards in any game, and we're through week 6, and he doesn't have a single score.
Yeah.
He's got one red zone look. Again, that's kind of alarming. So with plenty other options, including a backup tight end in Vernon Davis, who is in fact still in the league and actually tearing it up this league with Kirk Cousins, which makes me pretty happy to see. It's hard to expect Kirk Cousins to lean back to his go-to option of Reed here. Mm-hmm. And so with that, I say sit him.
Yeah, Jordan Reed, it's a tough pill to swallow because he's Jordan Reed. Mm-hmm. And you want to start him, and it's unfortunate that he's put up the season so far that he has. It's tough for Jordan Reed.
Yeah.
And I think at like around week 6 you can start to look at trends because we have the background to say, is this a trend? And by the week 6 you can kind of say, yes, this is a trend.
Is he in a slump? Is this going to be what it is this season? Is it just, and right now it's looking at the data that we got, that we've been collecting week after week for you guys at home, and all signs point to not a good week or many weeks to come after that. So unless he shows huge signs of life coming up, but with this matchup, I really don't see it. I'd keep him on your bench for now.
Okay.
Well, that does it for this week's edition of Stardom Situm. Stay tuned for more fantasy football talk to come on the BNFFLN. Thank you, and good luck in your matchups this week.